Welcome back to this channel, everyone. We're going to be finally doing a video about the Apple TV. Now, this is the first video I've ever done of these specific things, and it's funny because I bought these literally like months and months ago, and I never even got around to reviewing them. And I bought every single Apple TV that ever came out. So I bought the 4K one, I bought the 4th gen, 5th gen, I bought the first one. Like, the first one surprised me like crazy because I didn't think it was that big. I always thought the Apple TVs were super small, but we're going to be taking a look at the newest, latest Apple TV, the 4K one. Now, this one came out in 2017, and some people actually said it was long overdue because 2017, a lot of things were being able to, be filmed in 4K, being shown in 4K, and I'm really not going to make too much sense in this whole entire video because this is like the first time I've ever used Apple TV. I don't even think I've ever even seen one being used like at Best Buy, or if like went to Walmart or something. I never even saw one on display, so this thing was the first time I ever saw one, and it really kind of shocked me because for a lot of people they said it was pretty expensive for what it was offering. I think it was like $180 to $200 for this price tag. I specifically bought mine for about $130 on eBay, and it was used, which is really good if you want to save some money. And I was surprised because for the offering and for the capability that you're bringing, I think it actually offers a lot for the price tag even now in 2020. However, there are some caveats to it which I will explain in a second. Now, like I said, this thing came out in 2017, so this thing is 3 years old up until this day. Now, there's a rumor that a new one is going to be coming out very, very soon. I have no way to actually verify that, but some people are saying that there's going to be a 6th generation or the newer one after that. I think this is the 5th gen. The 6th gen is going to be coming out soon. But the funny thing is that if they do release another Apple TV, could they technically call it the Apple TV 5K if it can display things in 5K? And then the next one they could do 6K, and they'll just keep going on over and over. I think it could happen. I'm not really too sure, but technically this is still the newest Apple TV. You can go to Walmart, you can go to wherever you want to, Best Buy, and pick one of these things up brand new. They're about $179 for the brand new base model, and then a $199 for the top tier model. Now, I have the base model 32GB SSD, which is funny because I didn't even know these things had an SSD in them, but there is a higher option available. If you want to go through, you can do it that way too. It doesn't really matter. Or if you want to purchase it on Amazon, I'll leave a link down in the description. Now, the first time that I actually picked this thing up, I was actually looking at it. I'm like, man, this thing actually feels very, very premium. And since I've had the other ones, this one was the first one that I bought, and it came in first, and I was looking at it, I'm like, wow, this thing has some heft to it. And I was actually surprised that this thing had a USB Type-C port on the back, which I'll get to in a second. But kind of maneuvering it through my hands, it feels, very much like an Apple product still. It doesn't feel cheap at all. It still feels like a pretty good device even now in 2020. And I do believe that Apple's next Apple TV, the 4K or 5K one, that one is probably going to be designed the same way. It's pretty much going to look the same exact way in my opinion. I don't think they're going to change too much based off the rumors and everything, but the design and the way it feels and everything still feels very nice in my opinion. Now, in terms of the port selection on the back, you have that AC adapter, you have a USB Type-C port, you have an HDMI, and you have an Ethernet. Now, this thing does support Wi-Fi, it supports Bluetooth, it supports all that stuff. So that Ethernet port, they really don't need it, but it's also good to have it just in case, the Wi-Fi, it's not whatever, you never know. Now, I do think this has a really, really good port selection in the back, but I truly do believe that the next Apple TV might bring 2 USB-C ports, or they might switch something out. I hope they don't remove that HDMI cord or the HDMI port. That is something that is very, very important, and if they try to pull like a headphone jack on this thing, I don't think a lot of people are going to like it. So that HDMI port has to stay there. Now, what's funny is, and I didn't even know this, but the inside in terms of the internals and the power of this device, it actually pretty much has the same internals as an iPhone 7 Plus. So it has a 2.3 GHz CPU with the Apple A10X chip, and it also has 3GB of RAM, which is pretty much the exact same type of performance as the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, this also came out a year after the 7 Plus, so it's really not that big of a deal. And it technically has like a newer chipset than the 7 Plus, the A10X chip. It has pretty much the same exact chipset as that iPad Pro 10.5 inch. So that is something really funny. I was not expecting to see that on here. I thought it was going to have its own chipset, but no, it has the Apple A10X chip. Now, turning it on, it actually booted straight into tvOS, and I actually had to update it. It was on tvOS 12.3, I believe, and then I had to update it to tvOS 13.3.1. And it's funny is because I knew these things had pretty much the same design numbers as iOS, so every time iOS 13.3.1 come out or something like that, these ones would also get a software update, but I never knew it was quite like this. Like, it almost reminds me so much of iOS, which is pretty much what it was designed off of. And like I said, this was the first time I ever even saw Apple TV UI, and it's pretty nice. I really don't have anything too much to complain about, but it was kind of expected. It's nothing too crazy. it has the capabilities of, loading up Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, whatever. I already had those apps pre-installed on here. I think it comes pre-installed with every Apple TV. And I was kind of going through the UI and I was like, this is good and everything. Like, I do like it, but maybe I'm just not seeing, the use. Maybe I'm seeing something else. I'm not really too sure. And the reason I thought this way was because I have an LG TV, it's a 4K TV, it runs perfectly fine. I honestly don't even watch TV, I don't really watch shows that much, to be honest. But my smart TV already has a lot of these capabilities built in, you know what I mean? It already has like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube even, like it has a lot of these capabilities already built in. And I don't necessarily need to go get a separate device to do this. And I was thinking to myself, I mean, we have things like the Chromecast, the Roku, so many other different like streaming services as well, and this one is really one of the most expensive streaming things out there. I mean, this is a almost $200 machine, over $200 if you get the top tier model, and that's a lot of money to spend on something that you don't really need to spend on, you know what I mean? Especially if you have a smart TV that already has the capability of showing you Netflix or YouTube or whatever the case is. But all is not forbidden on the Apple TV 4K, I don't know, but this thing has a really cool ability of actually being able to use your voice input like Siri into Siri, which is really nice, and you can ask it to do something instead of typing things out. Now, one thing I hate doing is typing things out every 5 seconds when I'm actually on, my TV. Can you guys hear these geese? And I always have to like type in, SIMPLESALPACAIS DUMB. Like, it's just so dumb. Like, I have to type these things out every time I want to look up something, and it just takes a ton of time. Like, I don't really want to have to do that every time. With Siri, it makes things a lot better. Now, every smart TV is different, so I'm sure there's some that have voice capability. Mine specifically does not, because I'm just broke like that. But this Apple TV does have the capability of doing things like that, which is really nice, and I think that's a really cool feature, and I think it's overlooked for a lot of people. But you do have that capability on here, which a lot of smart TVs don't. Like, my smart TV doesn't have that. As I was looking through the Apple TV as well, when I was going through tvOS, I remember that this thing has Apple Arcade support, and there's actually some decent games out there for this thing. You can get them from the App Store. You don't necessarily need to go get them from Apple Arcade. You don't need to sign up for a membership or whatever. And some of these games are actually really nice too. And you're not going to go and spend like crazy amounts of times on these things. I'm sure if you're already not a gamer, I'm sure you're not going to switch into it from an Apple TV. But you do have some cool things, and like I said, you're not going to trade in your PS4 for this thing, but it's actually a nice touch. I think it's like a cool little, like, it's like a cherry on top. And if you weren't like persuaded into getting it from the things I just said, then one of these things, maybe the gaming selection of it, might actually be a little bit of a better push for you to get it, because like my smart TV doesn't have that capability. A lot of smart TVs don't have it, and I think for somebody who just wants to get something like all-in-one package, this thing has some sort of capability in it, which is really cool. So I think that's a really cool thing that the Apple TV has going for it. Even though I personally, I don't really care too much about it, you do have some sort of capability like that, which is really nice. Now, my favorite thing about this Apple TV would definitely be AirPlay, and if you guys don't know, it's basically like AirDrop, not really, but you're able to stream certain things from your iPhone and your iMac and your iPad straight on this Apple TV, and it makes it kind of like as all-in-one stop shop for your AirPlay needs. So if you want to play something, if you want to play a video, if you want to do whatever, you can just go and stream it straight to this thing and be set, and I think that's a really cool thing. And I'm sure a lot of people, they don't really care about it, but that's just like an extra cherry on top. So you have 2 cherries on top on this thing. Now, to kind of sum up this thing, man, I think a huge advantage for the Apple TV, at least what I saw when I was going through it, are people who are playing, iTunes and Apple Music purchases all the time. They bought a lot of things on those things. If you are like fitting in that category, something like this might be, pretty decent for you. Me personally, I had an Apple Music membership. I don't really use it anymore, but the iTunes thing, I never bought anything on iTunes, but you have, a lot of people out there who probably have. And something like this, again, is like your one-stop shop for all those needs. Not only can you do all those Netflix, YouTube, Hulu things on this thing, but you can also play your iTunes purchases from this thing as well. And my smart TV cannot do that, but the Apple TV can, which is a really cool thing. So, I mean, ultimately, is the Apple TV 4K worth it in 2020? Well, I'll say this is the newest Apple TV, so if you're going to have to get one, this is obviously the newest one you can get. But to me, it really isn't worth it, for me personally, just because I don't really have that many iTunes purchases. I don't really care. I mean, I have like an iMac that I watch videos from. I have a smart TV. I have a smart TV, and it's a 4K one. Like, I don't really care about it. And my TV can already do about like 60% of what these things can do. However, the AirPlay and Apple Music and iTunes capabilities, as well as some of those games and software updates, might be just a big enough push for you to go purchase one of these things, especially if you're somebody who doesn't have a smart TV. If you don't have a smart TV, getting an Apple TV would help you out so much, and it'll make your TV feel so much more up to date than if you didn't have one at all. So I think it's cool, especially if you're submerged into those things by Apple, the iTunes, Apple Music, all that stuff. If you're not, then you really don't care. But I think it's still kind of worth it for some people out there, and I'm curious to see what the newer Apple TV actually brings. So that pretty much covers it. If you want to pick up the Apple TV 4K, I'll find one on Amazon. I'll link it down in the description below so you can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.